So it says I'm live now. I've never streamed on YouTube, but we're live here on both Clubhouse and YouTube. And today's topic is talking about short-term rentals and the difference, benefits, pros, cons of owning, arbitrage, and co-hosting. So before we get started here again, if you are with us right now on Clubhouse, make sure to raise your hand if you've got questions along the way here. Make sure to follow all the moderators and make sure to ping some people in so we can get tons of information out to everyone. But I'm excited about this topic today. So before we get started, let's do a quick intro from everyone that's a moderator up on stage. I'll start with myself. You're joining us here on the short-term rental lunch break. We do this every Tuesday on Clubhouse, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We call it the lunch break because Jim, my partner in crime, is actually on the East Coast. So this is noon for him. It's only 9 a.m. for me. But basically, guys, I started an Airbnb really casually as a just kind of house hacking model back in 2015. And then I found out about arbitrage in 2018. Got started in 2019, and in basically 2 years now, we're closing in on 40 properties, which are mainly of the co-hosting model. We have 6 that we own. I want to say 29 that we co-host, and then 2 that we arbitrage. We've actually scaled back on the arbitrage and have transitioned some of those into management as well. And we're going to talk about why today for our business model. But Rafa, if you want to introduce yourself, give a quick little background, and then let us know the number of units that you have, and if you know the breakdown of which are arbitrage, which are owning, and which are co-hosting, that would be awesome to share as well.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Hey guys, my name is Rafa. I do short-term rentals in Southern California. I've been doing this since 2017. Currently, I have 23 units that are live under me. I've built out over 53 in my time. They're all arbitrage, so I don't co-host any. I've actually never even thought about co-hosting, to be honest with you, until I think I met you, Kyle. And then I don't own anything either. My goal is to open as many arbitrage units to start buying vacation rentals in specific locations around the country, around the world, actually, for that matter. But yeah, I focus strictly on arbitrage. That's it. Thanks.
That's awesome. Thanks, man. Yeah, well, I'm excited to have a serious conversation about the difference between arbitrage and co-hosting today, so we can try to get you over to the good side. No, I'm just messing with you. As long as you're doing Airbnb, you're on the good side, right? All right, Jesse, your turn, man.
Hey, what's going on, Kyle? Thanks for having me in this room. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Happy 420, whatever that means to you. Anyway, my name's Jesse. I am the owner of AirVenture Hosting Company. We are a short-term rental property management agency. So you know what? I guess I am a co-host too, Kyle. I've been an investor since about 2015, 2015, investing in single-family homes. I personally love that model because it creates, wealth long-term. Real estate is a long-term game. That investor part of me loves that. Which I'm still actively looking for properties and working with investors to either find properties, buy them, and then co-host them. So that's something I've been doing for a while now. I'm just here to add some value. If you guys have any questions about anything, I'm definitely open to discussions. So that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, good stuff, Jesse. I was going to say, I knew you were co-hosting too. So I was like, he's got to like that a little bit. So there we go.
Yeah, you're right. I do. But I'd rather own the property. I think for me, the co-hosting is just, added income to, to generate, to be able to purchase more property.
Absolutely. Acceleration. Acceleration is my favorite word there. Yeah. Perfect. Mr. Butler, Michael Butler.
What's up, guys? Hey, so my name is Michael Butler. I started Airbnb, it's still year 1 for me. I actually do wholesaling as an exit strategy in real estate. And so Airbnb was a way for me to be able to start getting some passive income. We chose the arbitrage model just because of the thought of being able to put a wholesale fee towards furnishing a unit and securing a unit and stuff like that, and profiting, close to $2,000 a month each unit. Sounded crazy to us when before all you were thinking about is possibly buying investment units and cash flowing $200 or $300. So that's kind of why we chose the arbitrage model, just because it was a whole lot more sexier than buying a traditional rental. But yeah, it's still new for us, and so yeah, that's why we get on here and see if we can learn a little bit more about some of the other models.
Yeah, that's great, man. And making great money with those 2 arbitrage deals. I love that, you made that transition. A lot of people in wholesaling stay on the active side of wholesaling, and Airbnb, as you know, can be very passive. So that's a big step for you. So good job, man. I know, Jim, again, if you want me to not call on you anymore, go ahead and just start flashing your mic. If you do want me to keep on calling on you, brother, I will until I know that you're available. But like I said, I think that you are in the middle of something. So I don't see your mic flashing. I'm going to give you 1 second here. Yeah, it looks like you're probably just not next to your phone, man. That's all good. And I'm sorry, you said it was pronounced Majid, right?
Yes, correct, Majid.
Perfect. Let's hear a little intro from you too.
My name's Majid, and I do the short-term rental, the arbitrage method here in Southern California. And right now we have 18 units. We are looking to possibly have more by the end of the month. And my goal is to start off with the arbitrage method and lean over towards using some of the revenue from the arbitrage and possibly owning some of our units. And I think arbitrage is a quicker way to create cash flow over owning it. Because if we wanted to own our units, we would have 3, but right now around 3 to 4 units. But right now we have 18, so it allowed us to increase our cash flow right off the bat by using the arbitrage method. And yeah, that's Majid, and I'm in Southern California.
Perfect. Thank you, Majid. And Kenya, welcome to the stage. You want to introduce yourself and let us know how many units you have, how many of those are either arbitrage, co-hosting, or owning?
Thanks, Kyle. So my name's Kenya. My listings are in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have 9 listings. 1 of them I own. The rest of them are arbitrage. And yeah, I rent entire houses and bedrooms in my properties. And the latest one I acquired is in a really trendy, walkable area in Charlotte, North Carolina. And things have been going well so far.
Very nice. Well, thank you for joining us up on stage here and bringing some value. Robert, we weren't able to get you on last time when you were up here, but are you there now and able to give a quick intro?
Sure, absolutely. Sorry, running around today. The life of a vacation rental operator. I've been doing this about 6 years. I'm based out of north of Houston. We now manage about over 70 doors. They're a mix between owner, arbitrage, partnerships, as well as what I prefer to call co-hosting solutions and vacation rental management. So that way we're not saying necessarily property management because you have to be a real estate agent here in Texas. Always enjoy. I actually like the play of all of them. I mean, I think in the hierarchy of this game, everybody hits a point where you can't buy any more unless you're buying with other people's money. You're going to hit a debt to income ratio at most points. So my thought is you start one, leverage it off, then go get arbitrages. Well, create great cash flow. What are you going to do with that cash flow? You got to invest it, go buy more properties, do more arbitrages. It's kind of a play. You go back and forth. I've got partners who do the BRRRR methodology. They go get hard money, secure a property. I come in if I like it. The numbers are good. I'm providing them a corporate lease. We do have banks, traditional banks that are lending off of our leases with LLCs. We then turn around, furnish it. We become that good tenant so they can refinance out. and go to the next property. But we now created a great relationship. Sometimes they partner with us, put a little bit of money back in the furniture. Sometimes we just manage the asset for them and manage and do it through arbitrage. So we like to play in all fields. We don't discriminate, and we've got luxury. I mean, I'm sitting in a property here in North Houston, Lake Conroe, and we started 2.5, 3 years ago with just an RV near the lake. We now have one RV and 2 tiny homes. Our tiny homes do $48,000 a year. My RV that's worth $15,000 does $24,000 a year gross revenue.
Legit. That's so awesome. Cool. Well, I love where you're at, Robert. You and I are probably going to have a similar mindset of playing in all fields. But looking forward to get into this topic. We got just 1 or 2 more intros here. Micah, welcome to STR Lunch Break, man. Good to see you in here. And can you give a quick intro and let us know, again, how many units you have and how many of those are arbitrage, co-hosting, and owning?
All right. Thank you for bringing me up, Kyle. I do a little bit of all of them. I only do arbitrage and owning. We have a total of 400 plus. We do it through arbitrage. Arbitrage is about 90%, 95%. So we do mostly through timeshares, and then we lease apartments. So we have a total of 10 leased apartments, 480 plus timeshares that we rent, and then I own 3, and I'm currently trying to get to 10 that I own at the moment. So thank you for bringing me up, and hope I can provide some value.
Mike, I'm so disappointed you never told me about timeshares. That's how I started.
You did? See?
Yes, absolutely. I have a friend. She was a Silverleaf, worked for Silverleaf as a contracts expert, and got very disappointed that she got laid off when Holiday and Club Vacations bought it out. Her annual maintenance fees between 5 accounts were like $5,600. So we started renting out all the timeshares for I don't know if you're familiar with the Endless Escape package through Silverleaf, and I have a couple Wyndhams, but I'd love to see how you're doing it because it's awesome.
Yeah, the goal is to not get a bunch of them. The goal is to find one that gives you access to many. So what I tell people is I tell them a timeshare that you're paying. So for example, we pay about $150 in maintenance fees, but it gives us access to over 500 different properties, and we can just rent those out while only paying $100 a month. So that's really the play there.
Are you tied into the RCI network?
I don't even use the RCI. I use the RCI for myself only. Like if me and my family want to go vacation, we'll use the RCI.
I can live off that stuff for $12,000 a year if you planned it out effectively. 2-bedroom, 2 baths at $198 a week.
Yeah, we just use the points and use the RCI for absolutely free for ourselves, and then everything else we just rent out.
I'll be in Dallas. We got to get together soon.
We definitely do.
Yeah, Micah, stick around, man. I think we're going to have some people with some questions about that because I know I have questions. So if I've got questions, I'm sure other people do too. Very cool. And then really quickly, we've got, looks like 2 more people just joined up on stage. Is it Ladero? Is that how you say your name?
Yes, it is. Thanks for having me up, Kyle. Ladero here. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. We currently we have 17 units right now. We're working on acquiring 4 more. And my main way is arbitrage, but we are looking to expand and purchase a few properties based up our arbitrage rental incomes, our cash flows.
That's great. Awesome. Well, thanks and welcome on stage. Looking forward to the value you're going to bring. And then let's go ahead and get these last 2 intros in, and then we'll get started here. So Rachel, can you give a quick intro for yourself?
Sure. I'm Rachel. I'm in the Atlanta area, investing in Georgia, Florida, the Panhandle, as well as the Poconos in Pennsylvania. And so just primarily we have, we own. We're going to be dabbling a little bit into the co-hosting and property management side of things because that request has been increasing again and again. And so just here to listen in and offer any insight that our short-term rental portfolio through ownership.
That's awesome. Perfect. And last introduction here, and we'll get started. Norman.
Yes, Norman. So it's been for about 4 years, currently managing 18 properties. We're doing a mix of
We're doing a mix of rental arbitrage on top of property management, even some co-hosting. So like we came in pretty much doing arbitrage, and since then, like, because of the demand and everything that's been going on, like we've since then like switched to like a hybrid business model. I think we follow each other on Instagram, Kyle. So definitely. I'm just on here to hang out, just learn some new stuff. So I might have a kid in the shop like.
Awesome. You're breaking up a little bit there, but I think we got the majority of that. Thank you for joining us, Norman. And thank you for all those of you that are here on the STR lunch break. We're talking about arbitrage, co-hosting, and ownership, the differences, the pros and cons, the goods, the bads, and uglies. And I'm also live streaming this on my YouTube channel, the Fearless Investor YouTube channel. So if you have a question about this, make sure to raise your hand. We're going to kind of have a panel back and forth here for about the first half hour. If you do raise your hand, we will invite you up on stage here in a second. But I want to kind of just give my 2 cents, and then I think it'll open up the floodgates for this conversation. So, guys, I think I just have to say I've followed what my customers want. And that is why, for me and my current business model, we have found that co-hosting has been the most beneficial, because I started off with ownership. And I noticed, well, I can't really scale that, right? Unless I have means to endless leads and endless money. It's really difficult to scale ownership and to accelerate. Am I saying it's impossible to scale ownership? Absolutely not. It is 100% a opportunity to scale ownership. Many people have done that, but to me, it's a slower play. A couple reasons. You need the money, or you need to raise the money. You have to wait for escrows to close. That can take upwards of 45 days. You have to usually rehab the property, which is going to, if you have a good renovator and remodeler, or contractor is a better term, I guess you could say, maybe 4 weeks, but we've got one going on in Arizona right now. We had a bad contractor, and suddenly, it's been 4 months that we've owned that property, making $0 and paying a hard money lender the entire time. That hurts. So we got into arbitrage. I noticed, hey, for $10,000, right around there, I can furnish a place and be up and running, and possibly get in about 2 weeks and be up and running. That's nice to not have to even have a day where I'm losing money, or maybe only a week where I'm not making money. But then someone asked me in February of 2020, what would it look like if you took my property, managed it on Airbnb, and I, the homeowner, paid for all of the expenses, and I pay you basically a hospitality management fee? And I said, that sounds interesting. And I did a little bit of research, and it turned out other people were doing that. And so I kind of just formulated my business model around that. I charged 20%. And in the beginning, I was charging a very small setup fee of $500. Now today we're at 20% and charging $1,500 for a setup fee. Plus we're keeping interior design in-house, which is bringing in another $2,000 to $3,000 for every new owner that we have. And suddenly I'm not only making an infinite return on my money, because I have $0 invested, but I'm actually getting paid to start someone's place for them. They're making more money. They're stoked about it. They were making $200 to $300 for a regular rental per month. Now they're making $800 to $1,000, and all they had to invest was, call it $10,000 to $15,000. And so for me, that's been the way that we've really, really scaled. You notice I mentioned that we started that in February 2020. Well, March 2020, we all know what happened there. It was this moment, of course, for everyone, of the, oh crap moment, is Airbnb going to get shut down? But as I kept staying strong to the model, I noticed that right around June and July, when people started kind of, I would say, getting back to asking me, how's Airbnb doing? Because I'd stayed strong with it and shared with everyone that, hey, we're still at a 90% occupancy rate. We've really only had to drop our rates about 10%. Everything else has been super strong. From July until November, we added on 16 co-hosting units. That took my income from about $7,000 a month to over $20,000 per month. And I didn't have a single dollar invested in any of those properties. So yeah, there's a reason why I believe in co-hosting. It's because organically, it was the easiest way for me to scale my business. And for that reason, it's what I believe is the fastest way to scale your business. I'm not going to say it's the most profitable. I think you can make more money in arbitrage. I know you can make more money owning the place. But I think in terms of scalability, in my humble opinion, when you don't have to worry about putting a dollar of your own money into a place, that takes away a lot of risk, a lot of stress, and a lot of inability it adds a lot of ability for you to be able to add more properties. So that's my 2 cents. I want to hear from our panelists though. Go ahead and just unmute yourself and I can invite you to speak. Let's see, Rachel was the first and then Micah, I'll go to you, but let's start with Rachel.
Hey, Kyle. Yeah, I absolutely love what you had to say. I firsthand have experience with getting to that DTI where, it's going to be a challenge to purchase and to continue to purchase. And just looking at diversification within the short-term rental class, there are 3 types of asset diversification opportunities, in my opinion. There's that ownership model, the arbitrage model, and the co-hosting model. And so to be diversified in that way, I think is not only strategic, but very wise as well. And so I agree with you 100%. I mean, I love hearing your story and your success, and I congratulate you, and I thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. I appreciate it. Yeah, the debt to income too. I mean, that's a really good point. I believe the best way to purchase a property is through, a wholesaler or through, direct from the seller, which means that usually you're going to have to involve hard money or private money. But then when you go to refinance, are you refinancing with a traditional bank that is going to look at your actual debt to income, or are you refinancing with a no docs loan, which will look at the rental income? So the DTI is definitely something that can be a roadblock. And that's something that I think, again, just continue to educate yourself. So really just quick follow-up question. Then I want to go over to Micah. Rachel, do you ever do no doc loans where you're able to use the rental income rather than your debt to income?
I haven't in the past, just because the ones that were being offered while we were purchasing, the fees were just too high. And so going the conventional lender route appeared to us to be the cheapest way to get money. So money has been cheap over the last couple of years. So the no docs, they appear to be really high in fees and inflated in interest rates and some other ways as well. So I've attempted to, but I've kind of shied away from it because of all of those additional expenses.
Gotcha. Yeah. If I don't know where your places are at. It looks like some in did you say North Carolina,
Georgia,
okay,
Tennessee.
Yeah.
And Pennsylvania.
Feel free to DM me on Instagram, and I can pass you over to the person that I use. But I'm refinancing a place right now for 4% interest rate, so it's pretty legit. So anyway, thank you for adding that in. Micah, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, you kind of touched on a little bit. If you can't hear me, let me know because I'm driving. But you kind of touched on a little bit. I'm all for. I haven't touched the co-hosting model. I'm all for arbitrage and buying. I always say buying is the cheapest, arbitraging is the fastest. And the reason I say that is because of the method of how you buy. I'm only a fan of buying if you're buying the right way. Therefore, the key word to buying is how you buy. I'm all for using the Burr method. So therefore, I can get in with little money and little to no money. So we just got one 3-bed, a bath and a half, started for $4,000. That's buying it, rehabbing it, and we roll the furniture cost into the rehab cost. So we come out of pocket very little. And what I've also done is to get away from the hard money lending route, either use your own cash, but even better yet, use lines of credit. Then you're no longer doing the hard money. You can get a little bit better interest rate. So you're not sitting there, paying the high hard money costs. And then if you use a line of credit, then refinance out of that. You have a little bit better chance of just keeping all the money in your pocket. And the arbitrage method, like a lot of people are against, a lot of people that buy, they're against that arbitrage model, but I don't think they see the power and how fast you can scale using it. So I'm all for both. It's just a matter of, it's the matter of the market, like what's going on, how creative you can get. So I tell people, if you're starting out, do arbitrage first, but learn how to buy correctly because it'll really push you to the next level.
Man, I love that. And I love that we're getting a little bit deeper here than just Airbnb. We're talking real estate investing too. So That's awesome, man. Really quickly, Michael, I see you want to say something. I got a backup question really quickly to Micah. Lines of credit, is that business lines of credit, personal lines of credit? Are you just talking your bank? Give me just like maybe 1 or 2 steps on that.
Business lines of credit all the way. If you can get a business line of credit, you can't beat that. And then what it does is it doesn't show up on your DTI when you refinance.
And that's just straight up a conversation with your bank?
Yeah. If you, the good thing about it, I've had an Airbnb, short-term rental business for 4 years. So I leveraged that with Wells Fargo, and they gave me a business line of credit where I can go acquire a house and rehab it, refinance it. So really it's about building a relationship with the bank. That's good. Good stuff, man. Thank you for sharing that. Michael Butler, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, man, I'm like right there with Micah when he talks about the arbitrage and the ownership part of it, right? I think it does get frowned upon because what it does take when it comes to the arbitrage model to get into some of these properties, after all your fees and stuff like that, somewhere around $15,000, right? Depending on how big that house is. But when you look at it from an investor standpoint, where my preferred exit strategy is wholesaling, it is a grind every day, and making $20,000 on a deal isn't something that's uncommon. So the thought, one of the things we get into, I know as a wholesaler, is sometimes you wish that it'd be a whole lot easier. And so the thought for me of dumping $15,000 into a property that's going to bring me $2,000 a month, like I would do that any and every day. So I think it really just depends on how you already make your money. So to me, it's a whole lot easier. And then the fact that you're already investing in real estate, yes, the owner or the owning the property would be a lot better. And it does give me an opportunity of being able to use that BRRRR method. Excuse my 2-month-old, she's waking up. But being able to find deals so you can own some properties, but also the scalability. And when you're also new to it, it allows you to, it's an easier pitch to rent a property from someone than it is to explain to them how you're going to co-host with them and the benefits of those things, and being able to properly be able to show them analytics of what you're doing and stuff like that. So I do think co-hosting can sometimes be more of an advanced strategy, whereas arbitrage, you're literally just paying, you're paying them rent and you're assuming all those risks.
Love it. Love it, man. Thank you for your input too. So we've talked about some of the pros. So what I'm hearing from pros are, from my standpoint of co-hosting, you're able to scale it super fast because you have a ready to go property owned by someone else already, and you're getting paid to start up the property. The pro of arbitrage was similar, very small cash investment, able to scale quickly because you have pretty much a ready to go property. And one of the pros, if done right, like what Micah was sharing in terms of owning, and also what Jesse said, when you own, you're building up assets. And if done the right way, buying something where you're going to be able to maybe do it through either creative financing or the BRRRR strategy, means that you're either getting the property for, once again, very cheap or no money, and possibly even able to use that extra money from the BRRRR method to actually pay for the furniture. So that's some awesome pros. Plus also in ownership, you're going to probably you're going to cash flow a lot more because you don't have the inflated rent that you do in the arbitrage model. But how about some cons? I'll just speak from, again, the co-hosting, because that's definitely the majority of mine. So my con in co-hosting is definitely dealing with owners. There are 90% of my owners are awesome. They respect my time. They trust me. They put their full trust into me. And then there's about that 5 to 10% that will text me at 10 p.m. on a Friday night. I don't respond, FYI. But they text at odd hours. They end up giving me a listing that was actually under their name, so I got to co-host with them, and now they can see all the responses, and so they start micromanaging. This is a very small amount, but it definitely is a thing with owners, and so for that reason, I've had to get really good at having patience, building trust with owners, and learning ways to kind of, you can say, swaddle the baby, just kind of ease them in and say, it's okay. I gotcha. Don't worry about it. You don't have to look online. In fact, I'm going to tell you, just take your notifications off so that you can rest easy at night. And so that's definitely been one of the struggles. How about from the arbitrage model? What would anyone from the arbitrage model that wants to share one of the struggles that they have had? How about
I can
Norman?
talk about it. So from my personal experience, one of the cons I've seen in arbitrage is that in general, there's no equity. Like there's no equity gain when you're doing an arbitrage play on the property. So for example, like if you're going into an apartment complex or like, somebody owns a house and they rent the house out to your company, that is usually like you're making cash, but like you're not getting any of that equity. That's the first thing that I've seen. And then the second thing that I've seen with arbitrage, especially when you're working with somebody who owns multiple properties, is that like, there's a risk that like you could have one bad apple basically like ruin your entire operation. Like I've seen people, they might have had 10 properties with somebody, and then somebody comes in, they have a bad guest come in, and like the guest throws a party, or the guest like gets into an argument with the leasing office, and then like they escalate that up the chain of command, and then you just lost like 10 units over one situation in one building. So I mean, that's definitely like a big con that I've seen with arbitrage. And like you can mitigate that, obviously, like if you build good relationships and like you have good vetting processes and stuff, like you can mitigate most of that, but like that's still a risk out there that I've seen with arbitrage. And then I guess another risk, with not necessarily a risk, but like I guess a con with arbitrage, is that like you have to ensure that there's enough meat on the bones when you're trying to like get into an arbitrage deal, because like just because someone's gonna let you arbitrage like a 1-bedroom apartment, like okay, cool, like yeah, you got the yes, but you have to also consider like what your expenses are with that arbitrage. In some cases, like they're significantly higher than like if you're owning a property, and like there's less meat on the bones, right? Like there's less beds usually. The biggest example is like I was speaking to somebody who finally got someone to say yes to the arbitrage, but like when they showed me what their rent was, I was like, dude, don't do that deal. Like you're paying $2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. That doesn't make any sense. So like one of the cons with arbitrage, another con with arbitrage is just making sure that like there's always enough meat on the bones with the deal, because like every deal isn't a good deal.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and honestly something that can apply to all models, especially that if you don't know your numbers for ownership and you get into a deal thinking that, oh great, I've got a property and you didn't do your numbers, now you own that thing and now you're stuck with it. Or like one of the issues that I've had with co-hosting has been you get someone that is interested and you don't really think about, well, I'm going to have the exact same number of resources going towards a 1-bedroom, 1-bath as I have for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. And I'm going to make way more with a 4-bedroom, 2-bath as a co-hosting or arbitrage or ownership for that matter. So I might as well use the same resources to make myself more money. So I think that's a great point for sure. I think Ladero, I saw that you unmuted yourself. Did you want to share something?
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. I was going to say, in addition, I agree exactly what Norman says, because my entire business model is arbitrage. One of the biggest things that hurdles, I should say, that we've been focused on right now is the real estate market, because things are so hot. A lot of owners are selling properties at the moment. And so now when the new owner comes in, they understand that we are arbitraging our building, our entire location. But for some reason or another, because of, some fear that they've seen in the market, because of last year, a lot of new owners are saying, hey, no, thank you. Like, since your leases are up, we're not renewing you. So that's one of the biggest challenges we've been facing going into 2021 with the arbitrage model in my area.
Yeah, Kyle, can I jump in there for a second?
Go for it, Rafa.
Yeah, so it's funny that you brought that up, because that is one of the biggest cons in this business is if not done correctly, your operation's only as long as your lease permits you to do, right? I hear a lot of this in a lot of different rooms where people are like, oh, arbitrage sucks because you can only go as long as your lease lets you. Well, that's true, but if you do it correctly, I mean, I've been in buildings for 4+ years, right? So it's like, that is one of the biggest cons, because a lot of people out there don't know how to structure, set up, or do things properly when starting up with arbitrage. And I've seen it countless times. Like it's happened to us on several occasions where as soon as the lease ends, it's like, hey, we're not renewing you. You got to go. And now you're scrambling to find another location, which will pretty much kill a lot of your cash because, you know, every time you move, you're looking at a $3,000 deposit, first month's rent type of situation, plus the first month's rent. And it just sucks, right? The second thing I wanted to touch on was what Norman was saying. And I think this is what he was saying, but one of the other biggest cons was when you're operating correctly and when you're doing things right, people tend to follow you. And so in my case, you know, I do show off that I do things right because obviously I've grown to a substantial amount of units because I've done things correctly over the last couple of years. And without fail, man, every time I go into a building or a location, it's instantly another 5-6 operators behind me. And even now at a building where I've learned my lesson not to open so many units in one building because last year the owner sold and we had to move and I had to kind of pretty much reopen 14 locations. Now I don't open more than 8 per location. And well, this was a brand new building and some of these guys saw that I was operating there and immediately they started going to the owner. And normally what I'll do is I'll talk to the owner firsthand and tell him, hey, listen, don't let other people operate here. But at the same time, it's kind of selfish. If I'm not going to take the entire building, you know, the owner needs to fill occupancy. And so now there's 4 other operators in the same building and they're not, I don't want to say they're not bad. I don't want to say they're bad operators, but they're not the best, right? They don't know what they're doing in terms of how to vet guests or how to price properly. And now we're stuck with issues where I'm competing with people who are bringing in guests that are extremely troublesome or guests who are paying, you know, ridiculously low rates because these guys don't know that, you know, they can make so much more money if done properly. And so it leaves us kind of in this pool of bad operators within a building. And one of the biggest things that I found myself having to do now in every location is talking to owners and saying, hey, listen, I just had this conversation with this guy also. If you have problems with these other operators, which you allowed in, like I don't want to be pulled in with them, knowing that, you know, how you knowing how I operate is nothing compared to how these guys operate. And so, and believe me, it's going to happen. We'll all have trouble guests, but at some point down the line, it's going to become a problem where it's happened to me where we all get pulled in together because there's so many issues going down in the building from different operators. I just don't want to be involved with that. So that's pretty much really what I wanted to say.
Can I add on to that too?
Yeah, go for it, Norman.
Yeah, so I mean, to take that even further, like if you're in a building with, like being in a building with bad operators is like literally one of the worst possible situations you could be in because like, yeah, current ownership is cool with it, but like what happens is like when it's time to sell these properties, like these 100 unit complexes, these big complexes, when it's time to sell those properties, like the owners don't have to tell the new people who are buying the property that like 20%, like the property might be like 100% occupied, which looks good on paper, but they don't have to tell them that like 20% of that 100 is like leased out to short-term rental operators. So what's going to happen is like someone's going to buy that building. They're going to come in and they're going to see that like, you know, there's so many operators here, some good and some bad. And like most people who are like at that stage in like real estate, like they don't have time to tell the difference, right? And so like they're really just gonna they're either just gonna start non-renewing people, or like they're just gonna literally they're just gonna start non-renewing people. So like it's important for people to like understand that, like, and I always tell people, especially people who are like close to me, like, yo, like we're not hosts, we're related. Like if you're an arbitrage, you're not a host, like you're a relationship manager, because like you have to maintain a relationship with like these owners. You have to maintain a relationship with your guests, because like if you ruin relationships with people, especially in like arbitrage, like you could put yourself out of like 100 units.
Yeah, and Rafa, I mean, that sounds like a nightmare, and I don't know how feasible this is, but anytime I see competition, whether it's good competition that knows what they're doing or bad competition, my thought is, if it directly is affecting me, is there a way for us to collaborate together? Like my first initial thing is, what if you had like that owner give you an introduction to those other operators, and you guys created like a Slack group where you're communicating all the time, and you're almost like a guy that is, you know, getting the questions of, hey, you know, Rafa, I've got this guy that maybe is going to be a problem guest. What do you think I should do? Like, should I say, you know, how do you pre-screen them? How can I pre-screen them? And maybe it's a little bit extra work, but it creates collaboration to where you're all operating at a higher level. and maybe they find deals in other complexes and they want to JV with you and they want to bring you in on some other deals. Have you ever thought about going down that route?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that, Kyle. I actually just did that. So last week I sat down with all of them. I actually called the owner and I was like, all right, give me everybody's number. And I got everybody together, and we're actually going to meet up. I think Thursday we're going to have lunch, all of us, because it's 3 other operators now. And they're all, 2 of them are residents that live there. They just happen to take 2 of the units there. And so, you know, they're like, oh, we got to jump on this and make some money. And so now I actually got them all down on my system. So it's funny, I kind of became like their teacher sort of mentor, and it's not something that I'm really used to doing, but I'm willing to do it with these guys because, again, it affects me directly. And yeah, you know, between all of us, we have, I want to say 24 total. And from my experience in the past, again, I don't want to lose the building or cause problems. So yeah, I put them on like things like the noise aware, the systems that we have in terms of vetting. I'm actually going to sit down and go over pricing with them, like I was saying, on Thursday. And we've all been pretty much talking. And just last night, it was like 10 p.m. and I was getting messages. Hey, I have these guests who are inside. Like, they're having a party. How do I tell them to shut up? And I'm like, okay. So my response was like, we'll talk tomorrow. Just ask them to keep it down. You know, one of the downsides of that is that now I'm getting text messages at 10 p.m. asking how to solve other people's problems.
Right.
And so it's one of the things I'm going to make clear. Hey, listen, I'm going to help you guys out, but at the same time, I'm not here to answer all your questions and solve every single issue you're going to have, right? You wanted to jump in. You're going to have to kind of be the big boy now and figure it out. I'll help you with as much as I possibly can. But at the same time, if it's like something major where it's going to affect us all, then of course, text me at any moment. But yeah, I think I'm actually doing that now. So Thursday, we'll see how it goes after that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, actually. So one of the guys that went in there, he saw, because I took 7 immediately, right, of the building. And again, I was going to take all of them, but I don't like doing the whole thing. And so this guy jumped up and he's like, well, if this guy's doing it, I'm going to take 8 units. So he took another 8. And like, at the same time, he's asking me like, hey, what do I do to like get all these furnished so fast? And I'm like, bro, number one, you messed up by taking all 8 at once, right? You don't have the systems in place to be able to furnish all these 8 units right off the bat. What you should have done is secure them, slow them down, and done like a 1 lease now, or lease in a month from now, but secure them, right? Secondly, if you're taking 8, like you could have negotiated like a month and a half free rent, maybe even 2 months with this guy. I got a month's rent off of all my units from this guy. And so now I'm sitting here trying to teach them this part of the entrance into a building. But at the same time, they're like, okay, well, they started hosting guests and they didn't even have a couch in there. Like they just decided, hey, let's just take pictures and we're going to put it up. Their first guest comes in and they're like, hey, we don't have a couch. And the guy was like, oh, it's cool. We just need somewhere to sleep. And because, again, the location's so good. But it goes back to the question of like, maybe you should have done a little bit of research before you jumped all in like that, right? It's like you jump into a pool without knowing how to swim. And so, yeah, come this week, we're going to sit down and talk about all that. Not to mention, one of the guys also has a bunch of locations in other buildings. So I'm going to take that as an advantage and be like, hey, I'm looking for their places. And now we are going to collab on that side as well. And another beautiful part of it is they've actually put me in contact with another great linen company in my area that's actually does a pretty good job. And the rate is a lot cheaper. So there's positives to it, right? Of course. And it's one of the reasons why I want to collab with what you said.
Yeah. I think, we're kind of like now on the arbitrage A and B model. We're talking about arbitrage here, co-hosting and owning if you're just joining the group. But I think it's really important to know that there's different sides of arbitrage as well. There's a single family house, and then there's apartments/condos where you can get multiple units at once. And that's great. But like what Raf is saying, if you can get multiple units at once in an apartment complex, then so can someone else. And suddenly you're being grouped together with all those people. So it's awesome, Rafa, that you're working on collaboration. Keep on doing that, man. I'm sure you're going to figure out the best way to do that. And it sounds like it's already, paying some fruit. I think anytime you can have that collaboration mindset, it's that abundance mindset, right? It feels uncomfortable. Like, wow, I'm making my competition better. I'm going to teach my competition. That feels a little bit opposite of what we really initially think. But then in the long run, man, I just encourage you to keep on doing that, because I think it's going to pay off. And I think it's going to be something that pays tenfold beyond what you can even see right now. So good for you for trying that. Micah, what's up, man?
Yeah, so I kind of had a question on, like, to the arbitrage guys who have the bad competition or something. And this is kind of just to throw it out there to you guys to maybe kind of look at it like this. If you're having, like, these bad operators, right, and they're lumping you in with the bad operators, couldn't you possibly get away from that by branding your company to where you're not considered an operator of that sort? Because it sounds like sometimes we get caught in the Airbnb model. So what happens is if we're all Airbnb hosts per se, then yeah, they're our competition. But if this, so example, if you're in a complex with Lyric and then there's with Sonder and there's another operator in there, if that bad operator, something happens, I'm pretty sure they don't lump Sonder in. They're telling Sonder's like, oh, well, that's not us. And then the apartment complex goes on. So how have you guys kind of figured a way to maybe brand yourself so you're not lumped in with those guys?
Yeah, I can answer that. So when I first started with this specific owner, I did the whole, convincing them to do corporate housing, the works, right? I come in as a professional operator. The downside is that, I branded myself as a professional operator from the very get-go. I was the one who laid the groundwork, and so I actually have 3 locations with this owner now, right? I'm talking about only one specific location because I took over the other one by myself. But I basically told him, look, this is what I do. I came in, we're professional operators. We don't always do Airbnb. I didn't even mention Airbnb at first, actually. He actually brought it up. And, we do corporate housing. We do the business travelers, the families for leisure, everything, right? I explained it to him from a different perspective that wasn't the Airbnb model. And so, but the fact is that he's such a new owner with this specific model of renting to specific tenants that do corporate housing and Airbnb, that he doesn't really know the difference of who's good and who's bad. That's not to say, right, and it goes back to the bad operators. Look, bad operators are only bad operators because they don't know how to handle situations correctly, right? It's not that they choose to be bad operators. I mean, there is some of those out there, but I don't think anybody chooses to not care about the location that they're arbitraging in, especially when they've invested a significant amount of money and they're paying a significant amount of rent every month, right? And I think that the fact is, this guy, the same owner, was also desperate to get these units filled. And since I decided not to take them, he started telling people, hey, like this, he was literally going around telling people, hey, Rafa has this really great model here. You can do it also. That's literally what he was doing. And I didn't know about it until I started finding out from the guys who were operating there also now. And so it came from the fact that I branded myself as such a good operator in the building, where he started saying, hey, you can come in here and then talk to Rafa, and Rafa will teach you what to do so that you do it correctly the same way he does it. And which is it's funny because it was kind of like a double-edged sword, right? I was being branded as such a good operator, but at the same time, started bringing in other people, which is an issue I've never had in the past. Other locations that I've had in the past, you can't really find out who the bad operator is if it's like a gigantic building and you're not on top of it, I guess you could say. Because I have been in other buildings where it was a 120 unit building and they had 5 or 6 other little operators who had 1 or 2, and I didn't know about them, right? I don't know about every single person in there because, again, I'm not watching the entire building. But with this specific building, it goes down to, that's why he allowed everybody to come in and do the Airbnb arbitrage model, was because I came in and I explained it to him and I educated him and I taught him about the systems. And then he started telling other people, hey, this is what Rafa's doing. Once you set up, go talk to Rafa and he can show you how to do it. Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
Bro, you should have got first right of refusal.
I know,
and
man.
that's where I was gonna go with it. Like, if you're branding it, you brand it, and they're coming to Rafa, and then they're telling them, yeah, I think you should have probably put a stamp on it. Like, okay, this is sort of for, I think Sonder, they do it. They put a stamp on it like, hey, this is ours. This is how we do it. Maybe that's an answer to our problem here.
Hey, you guys, this all seems like a headache. That's why I'd rather own property.
It's not that big of a headache, Jesse. It's not that bad. Listen, it's the problem is that it goes down to how things were handled. Yes, like Norman said, I should have done that. Absolutely not. Like, now it's one of those things that I'm like, great, right? And I knew about it. I just never even crossed my mind. But it's one of those things where it's gonna, like, if done correctly, once I talk to these guys, like, look, we're gonna have a good relationship. Like I was telling you guys, I'm already getting referrals to like other things that are gonna make my business better, right? The fact that we all have the entire building controlled, like now we're getting the owner to build us like this giant storage on site, that's a plus side, right? So there's specifics to it. Now I think it's just going to go down to educating these guys to do things right, to make sure everything goes correct and proper for all of us.
Yeah, but see, still for me, like that just seems like somebody else's screw up is now going to cause you a problem. That's just where being in a business like that, I mean, for me, it's like, I wouldn't want to deal with that. I'd rather have my own screw ups that are my fault that break me down as far as, all that stuff. And a lot of people are getting into arbitrage, quickly. And this is my take on this. They're watching YouTube videos of dudes with freaking Lamborghinis and stuff and be like, oh, I'm going to make $1 million. Dude, it's not like that. It's like, you have to be in customer service. You got to, like a lot of us probably out here came from sales or something like that. It sounds like Robert maybe came from sales. I'm not sure, Jim, Kyle, or Rafa. Like, that's kind of, hospitality, customer service is like one thing. You know what I mean? Like, you have to love doing that, or else you're going to have shitty guests that come in. You're going to have, you know what I mean? You have to care about that stuff. And I think that's where the separation between the two things like becomes a reality. But anyway, for me, that's just where it's hard to look at it and have somebody else, excuse my language, fuck up, and then you have to pick up their slack for their, for them not doing what they need to be doing the right way.
Yeah,
that's just my 2 cents.
Jesse, so I see a bunch of people wanting to respond really quick. I think it's a perfect time to, we talked about some negatives, some cons of co-hosting. Now we're talking a lot about negatives of arbitrage. And I don't want to say negatives. I keep saying negatives, cons. That's a better word. So just really quickly, Jesse, like, of course you see some amazing opportunity with owning, but there's definitely some cons there too. Can you just maybe name one or two for some cons in ownership?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, like, I had an AC unit go out on a 1,600 square foot home, and that was 10 G's. Like, that was 10 grand that I had to, like, try to figure out, to put that up. And there was guests in there, and, I had to tell them that you guys have no AC. And keep in mind, this was a place in the Central Valley in California, and it was like 110 degrees outside, and it was like 130 in the house. I had to go buy fans. I had to go to Home Depot and buy these, like, units that you put ice in to cool the place down. And, yeah, so and then I had another house that's like this vintage. It's a vintage home that has like one of those, I don't know if you guys have seen those old homes. They have like flat roofs. And I just bought that place in 2017 or 2018. And it was the first summer I've never dealt, I was never in there in the summer, and I had to go and put a new roof on that. Dude, that was like another, I think it was like 13,000 just for that, eventually. So you have to, I mean, there's pros and cons for sure. But again, like, me coming back on that, it's just the equity that you get, that you can generate and, pull money out of, and, things like that. So, but I get it. I mean, arbitrage, I get it too. And I think a lot of people were talking about arbitraging and building that, using that capital, and then purchasing property and diversifying. And so that's a good option too.
See, and I have a question for you, Jesse. You named all that, but to me, none of that is a con if you're structured correctly on the ownership side. So this is one of my biggest pros to owning, right? I actually treat the properties that I own as arbitrages. I lease those properties to my LLC, so then I can have a regular homeowner's insurance policy, and then I can put a proper insurance policy on the LLC. So then when stuff like that happens, I can get loss of income. I can get, and then my regular homeowner's insurance will pay for a new roof. They'll pay for AC. So that's why I think it's not, I wouldn't say to do both, but it's good to know both sides of arbitraging and owning. So then you can take your skills from arbitraging and use it as an advantage on the ownership side. So then you're not out of 10 to 15,000 because, hey, proper is going to pay my LLC for a loss of income, and it covers everything that you just named. And that's one thing I do want people who do own to understand insurance as well, and understand how you can use the arbitrage model to your benefit.
Yeah, no, I do that. So I have an LLC that I do rent through, and I think that's a whole other room that we'll have to eventually, have someday, Kyle, of people that own properties and the way it's set up and the payments and the way that you can, leverage your own money through your own LLC and building business credit. I think you talked about that too. But yeah, that's a whole different separate room for sure. Yeah,
that we've had rooms like that too, and I think there's so much value to be had there. So. Micah, I think, I mean, what you just said there is super valuable. I think if people can, if anyone has questions about insurance, that's probably not for today's topic, but Micah is super connected with Proper and knows all the ins and outs. Micah, are you open to people jumping into your DM on Instagram and asking some backup questions on that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I'm open book. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, hey guys, this is a good time to reset the room. You were listening to the STR lunch break here. We do this every Tuesday. Eastern Standard Time is 12 to 2. Pacific Standard Time is 9 to 11. So kind of like the brunch, STR brunch break. But we're talking about arbitrage versus co-hosting versus owning. We just talked about some pros and cons. Amazing moderators up here giving tons of value. So go ahead and follow all the moderators. If they've got that little green star under their name, that means they're a moderator. But we do have a couple people now on stage that possibly have some questions. So I want to start really quickly with Candace. Looks like you might have a question.
Hi, yes, I do. And thank you for bringing me to the stage and giving me this opportunity. My question is, so I'm in Miami currently, and I've been looking to arbitrage. You know, I've talked to a few realtors trying to really make those connections and build those connections. But the thing that I keep hearing is that arbitrage, like, they don't do it here. So, you know, I've been in a few Facebook groups as well, and they were also saying, like, oh, realtors don't like to do it, landlords don't like to do it. So, in you all's opinion, do you believe that there's certain markets where rental arbitrage does not work?
Are you in Miami? Did you say you were?
Mike, I think you're trying to say something, but you're on mute.
I think he said, are you in Miami?
Oh.
Yes, I'm currently in Miami.
I haven't found too many markets, and I'm in some real rural markets and some real markets that are in the middle of the city. I haven't found too many that don't work. But if you're in Miami, last time I was in Miami, I literally seen them posting short-term rentals permitted on outside of big apartment complexes. I don't think you should have an issue there. But I haven't seen too many cities where it's just a problem. I mean, I think Jay actually said this a couple of weeks ago. There is nowhere in the short-term rental space that's oversaturated. It's just you have to find the right customer. So that's what I think it is.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that too. So I think you need to look around. First, read the ordinance for wherever you're at, right? And then once you truly, and I mean truly read it, don't just like skim on it. Like, read the fine points and understand where you're able to operate. Because if you're talking to people who have never done short-term rentals, who have no idea and they're giving their opinion, you're talking to the wrong people, right? Right now, you're in the right room with everybody who's doing arbitrage. We can all tell you that it's possible and doable pretty much almost anywhere as long as it's allowed within those ordinances. And even where there's an ordinance, you're still allowed to do it if you're within, per se, the right zone, right? Or within the right building. So I think you need to go back into whatever city you want to operate, read that ordinance, figure out exactly what you can do there, and you'll be able to operate with no problem. Because if there's real estate agents that are telling you can't do it, they've probably never done it or don't even know what they're talking about. Or if you're talking to other property managers, it's probably because they're not educated on it and don't know what they're talking about, right? Your job is to go out there and educate those owners, landlords, property managers, whatever it is, even real estate agents, of what it is that we do, how it is that we operate, so that they can allow you to come in here and do your business properly and well. Once you do that, and once you understand how to properly educate and teach these people what we're doing, you won't have a problem going in any building. That's all. I think others can chime in on that, but that's all I got.
I'll drop the mic.
I think that's such good points. And there's an art to pitching this, right? You know, there's stuff that you have to really make sure that you understand, make sure that you're able to speak to pain points, you know, and just like what Jesse said, if you have a sales background, it's probably going to come a little bit more natural to you. But if you don't have a sales background, you're going to want to learn how to pick up just a few very basic sales techniques that will allow you to build a relationship and allow you to educate without feeling salesy. And that's definitely something Candace, we have a number of top industry leaders right now on this moderator board. And many of them, including myself, including Jay, TJ has a masterclass. I think Micah's got a podcast. there's just a number of resources here where you can find whether you want to pay for it and streamline it, or if you want to, use the YouTube University mindset and find a way to master that pitch so that you're able to educate these owners. Just like, I think that's such a great word, Rafa, educate. The pitch and educate are interchangeable. One is a little bit less intimidating, but educate sounds so much better. So that's an awesome way to look at it, Candace. And thank you so much for the question. And we wish you the best of luck. Before we go to the next question, we have a couple of big hitters that just joined us up on stage. And I want to first start with Theron. Actually, you jumped on before Jay and TJ. So if you want to give just a quick 15 to 20 second introduction and include your favorite, arbitrage, co-hosting, or owning.
All right, Kyle. Great room, by the way. As soon as I saw the title, I knew this was going to be something super valuable to people, because this is something that there's always discussions on these things, and there's definitely pros and cons to each. To introduce myself, for people who don't know, I'm the Airbnb regulations guy. I almost lost my business that started off at 10 properties, or was at 10 properties at the time, due to short-term rental regulations in Detroit. Went from almost losing everything to getting that proposed ban pulled, being at the table with city council to be in charge of making ordinances for the industry with city council, and growing my business massively due to the connections I made in my community through advocacy. So that's my whole jam, and I want to make sure that I help as many people as possible with regulations-related matters so that they don't have to go through what I went through, and that they can also grow their business and protect their business as well, because you can do good for your community with this, but you can also do good for your business. To go with the question, personally, I've done all three, and I currently still do all three. So I own, co-host / manage. We manage the properties, and then I also do arbitrage. I mean, it's tough. I mean, I definitely have a preference. I would say that arbitrage and owning are the two tops for me. Co-hosting / managing, I think it's very lucrative and very good for certain individuals and for certain businesses who really tailor their business to that. But with regards to arbitrage and purchasing, I feel like they're more closely connected, and there's pros and cons to each. And Kyle, real quick, I know you asked for an introduction. If you don't want me to go into my full thoughts on this, I can wait. I don't want to jump ahead here.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. Yeah, let's hold off on 1 second there, and we're going to have a continued free-flowing conversation here about the pros and cons of each. Before we ask you to give your 2 cents on that, let's do another introduction here. TJ Tijani, who, by the by, is his episode with me on my podcast, The Fearless Investor, just dropped today. So TJ's got an amazing story and amazing knowledge, and he is the Clubhouse king of Airbnb. Thank you so much for joining us, man. Let's get a quick intro from you.
Man, I appreciate you, Kyle. My guy, appreciate you, bro. Definitely looking forward to that episode, by the way. I'll definitely check it out. For me, well, great question. Quick intro. I mean, I'm here in Houston, Texas. I am both what you consider a landlord host and a rental arbitrage host. So when we talked about which one do we prefer the most, the two that I'm heavily involved in, those are the ones that I like to do the most. I find that properties that I own, and understand when I buy properties, I don't purchase them the traditional way. I don't purchase them with conventional or FHA or whatnot. For me, I like to do value add plays. So we come in and we buy these properties distressed, and then we leverage private money to get these properties funded, both on the acquisitions and on the remodel. We're able to do that because we're getting it at such a deep discount. So what I've been focused on since I got into this game is focused on multifamily properties, small multifamilies, and honestly, those have been giving me my best yields. The ones that I purchased that I'm able to add value to, because what you'll find there is that you still have a ton of equity in the property. Usually, I don't like to be any more than 70% loan to value, meaning there's 30% equity in the property with respect to what the property's worth. And this way, I leverage local banks, so the interest rates are very competitive. And not only will that property cash flow as a short-term rental, but a property will actually also cash flow as a long-term rental. But that's how I like to buy them. I think when you're looking to purchase these properties, you have to make sure that you do the numbers right up front to make sure that it'll work on both ends. I like to look at the short-term rental numbers as just the icing on the cake, even though it's a huge chunk of icing, because we're looking in a normal situation, we're able to 4x, 5x, 6x what our traditional rental incomes would do. So even though that's the case, we still want to make sure that these properties will cash flow regardless, because you never know what could happen. Things could change. You always got to have that exit strategy. But for me, I make these properties full-time short-term rentals, and they do very, very well. And those give me my best yields, the ones that I own. But I also love rental arbitrage because, I mean, just the entire concept of it, being the middle person and cash flowing from assets that you don't even own. Years ago, if you was to say that to me, I would look at you like you're crazy. So, but I love the arbitrage aspect because I'm able to scale faster with it. And again, to this question that you're asking, understand that there's no wrong answer, right? They all work. It just depends on what works for you, what your goals are. For me, I love purchasing properties that I can add value to, but from the point of getting them to the cash flowing point, it does take time, right? Because we've got to remodel these properties, and then we move into the furnishing and whatnot. So it takes time. So what I like to do is I like to purchase these properties, and in the process of remodeling, I'm still picking up arbitrage properties in the meantime. So that's why I do both, and I love both, and both have been a phenomenal strategy for me. And I'm excited because I'm about to close on my first commercial deal. It's a 13-unit here in Houston. We're going to be doing a boutique hotel conversion on that one. It's a multifamily property that super excited about that. So again, while we're doing that, we're still going to be picking up arbitrage units, right? So, and looking at some other deals. So yeah, that's how I got it going on.
That's awesome, brother. Thank you so much. And one more introduction here, Jay Massey. You able to give you a quick intro here, man?
Sure, but I had a question first. Is that okay?
Of course, go for it.
Hey, TJ, you said, and I think I've heard you say it before, but this is the first time I get a chance to ask the question. You said that the ones that you own produce the best yield. And I'm like, compared to what, and how are you doing that math?
Oh, great question. So, well, for one, compared to, of course, traditional long-term rentals for sure, but I'm really comparing it to even really all the short-term rental strategies. What I find is that even for me, the best yields are the ones that I own, and then rental arbitrage, while they still produce amazing cash flow, I am not only making more from the ones that I own, but I'm also keeping more as well because my defense and my expenses are lower. Take, for example, there's a duplex that I own in right outside of Midtown in 3rd Ward here in Houston. This duplex is a 2-1. Each unit's a 2-1. That duplex on average does about $7,000 a month on average. My mortgage on this property is just under $2,000, around $1,988, something like that. That's my mortgage. But if you look at just down the street, which is in Midtown, I have a lot of units in Midtown as well. I'll take well, I don't have any 2-1s that I'm renting, but a 2-2 that I'm renting that I'm doing arbitrage in. But, that one could bring in, depending on a month, anywhere between $3,500 a month to $4,300 a month, something like that. Well, and here's the thing, but what I'm paying, but that 2-unit building, that 2-unit is costing me $1,800 a month to rent, right? Versus and that's just on 1 2-bedroom. But the 2 2-bedrooms that I have just 5 minutes away that I own, and there's 2 of them, but my mortgage on the entire building is $1,900. So that math just based on the expenses there is for one, and then when you look at the kind of income that it actually brings in is on the other end, and it actually brings in because it's 2 units. And the way that's why I love my duplexes, because I love purchasing duplex because I love having 3 listings with them, where I'm listing 1 unit, listing the other unit, and then I also have a 3rd listing where they can rent the entire building, and I'm able to really charge a nice amount for them renting 2 units within 1 listing. So that's why, and I understand this can 100% be market dependent, right? Depends on where you are, depends on your market. But
it's the calculation of yield.
Damn, Jay, you breaking in and out, bro. I can't really hear you.
Sorry, I'm trying to. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Go ahead. I think you're coming in better.
Jay, if you're still there, looks like you're on mute. I think we lost Jay.
He might have a network issue. Or
yeah.
Like the best of us. But yeah, overall, just for like example. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, looks like he's in a rough spot. TJ, if you want to keep sharing there, and then we can track him with Jay again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So overall,
How about now?
Go ahead, Jay.
No or no?
Go,
Yes, no.
Go for it, Jay.
All right, good. So no, what I was saying is I heard the math, but what I'm talking about is the yield calculation. Because on the purchase, on the ones that you're owning, I understand, yes, the arbitrage between a mortgage versus your rent, absolutely, it's going to be there, but that's operational profit. When we're talking about yield, we have to include your return on equity as well as the original. I'm assuming you refinanced out your original purchase price as well as the rehab costs. But if you haven't, then that's definitely still a part of it because you have more capital at risk in the properties that you will own than the arbitrage unit. And that's exactly the point, is that yes, the house has equity, but the only way the math works is if the equity doubles every year in order to keep pace with what you could do from an arbitrage standpoint first, then start building equity. And that's why I was confused when you're saying that you have a higher yield on a property that you own when I do the math, I'm like, does that mean he has no equity in these properties? But that doesn't make any sense, because if he does, I don't see how he would have a higher yield on those. That's where I'm having the trouble and disconnect.
So great point, right? So, but here's the thing though, that 100% you're right. If you purchase the property a normal, conventional way, me personally, why I don't feel like that property is at risk from an ownership perspective is because honestly, I use private money to fund the entire thing. As no money out of my pocket. Even the interest payments that needed to be made while the rehab was going on was funded on the front end. Literally no money out of my pocket. Then I went into the refinance the property, and I could pull out cash, but I actually like to leave as much equity in the deal as I can. So I only pull out cash if I need to. If I actually had cash into the deal, then I'll pull out what I actually put into the deal. And so, but outside of that, I leave as much equity as possible. And I like to purchase these properties in highly gentrifying areas where I know the appreciation is definitely going to be there. But the appreciation is just one of the benefits of owning. Why that's crucial, very, very important. I don't use that I use it to make a decision, but it's not a decision from a cash flow perspective. So for me, if I'm able to purchase a property, essentially, if I'm able to purchase a property with no money out of my pocket and still capture a good amount of equity and cash flow nicely as a short-term rental, then why not do that in conjunction in doing rental arbitrage? And that's the way I see it. So for me, with no money into the deal, that's why I say my yields are better.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm going to say one thing. If you do that on a risk-adjusted basis, you're spending way more capital to generate the same amount of revenue. Yes, it doesn't come from you, but your book value on that asset is still hundreds of thousands of dollars higher than in a rental arbitrage. But for funsies, what I mean is, if you ever do a risk-adjusted return and or take an internal rate of return or do your compound annual growth rate, I think you'll see the math of what I'm talking about. But for fun, here's what I would love to do. I'm headed to Houston to open up 20 units. How about you do the same your way? We'll spend the same dollar amount. I'll spend my 100 my way. You spend your 100 your way, or whatever the dollar amount is. We can agree on that later. And let's just see over 12 months who ends up where. Deal?
Man, boy, Jay, I love it, man. I love it. Good deal. Okay, and I can spend it my way, whether I do arbitrage or own, right?
Yeah, I'm wanting you to do the burst thing because because I need to see this. I want to be a convert. Take me to the church of TJ because I think the math tells me that there's something TJ, I'm missing something. So I'm like, I want to find out. So I'm like, hey, since I'm coming to Houston, might as well, right?
Man, that's what's up. Yeah, we can definitely make that happen. Where are you coming, by the way, Jay? When are you going to be here?
Oh, don't worry. You will hear when I land. I'm messing with you, man. I'm messing with you. We actually haven't planned that yet, but we're still getting some of the units together. But yeah, okay. Because I need, because again, when I do the math tells me what to do, and it's arbitrage first until the cash flow stream is strong enough to buy a house every month. Once that's there, then it's a different story.
And actually, I don't disagree with that whatsoever. Like arbitrage, especially if you can get to that sweet spot, 10, 15 units, and creating these literally down payments for a property, and then move on to actually purchasing a turnkey property because you've created these down payments every single month. And that's 100%. I agree with that. That is spot on. But at the same time,
did you just say it's only 15 units for a down payment in Houston?
Yeah, I'll say like 15.
Sweet Jesus. I needed to move a long time ago, man. Okay, no problem.
yeah. So, but then if you could actually get to the ownership, sooner by leveraging private money, if you're willing to do a value add play, that's the caveat. You have to be willing to do the rehab. You got to be willing to do the value add play and leverage private and learn. That's a whole skill on its own. That entire strategy. If you're willing to do that and get to a
I'll still get a higher return on private capital. I promise you, my friend. I will even if I leverage other people's money, I will produce a higher return without rehabbing first. But that's what we're gonna find out. So I'm coming down. We'll go through the details. It'll be great.
So guys,
the last thing I'm just gonna say real quick, but see, that's when I also place the value on ownership. Period. Like a cash flow and a return, yes, 100%. But I also place value on everything else that comes with the benefit of owning, like the depreciation, the depreciation. I mean, which is what the tax benefits, the appreciation, of course. You know what I'm saying? So all the other things about owning, I place a pretty good value on, and just the long-term wealth component of it, I definitely I definitely place value on that. And if I can get to that now while I'm still doing rental arbitrage, I'd rather do it that way.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in really quick, Mike. I see you want to say something too, but I want to just be No, you're good. You're good. I'm gonna be the guy that says that gives you both a run for your money on this $100,000. So far, I've been the lone wolf here talking about co-hosting, and Jay brought up the magic of what I love about co-hosting, which is that I'm going to get a higher yield because I literally have $0 invested in a property. So that same $100,000, I'm going to take that, guys, and I'm going to go over to my real estate business that I have for flipping. I'm going to take that same $100,000 and then turn it into a $30,000 profit in about 3 to 4 months. And then I'm going to take that $130,000 I get back, and I'm going to do it again into the next flip and the next flip while my co-hosting is making me money without having any money involved. So I don't know. I might have you both beat with the return on that investment.
Are you seriously wanting to play this game?
I know Jay will topple me. I am an ant under his boot, but I just had to be the devil's advocate here.
Here's what I know. With $100,000, you give me 12 months and you will have no less than $30,000 of net income every month. Period. Not one time, not flipping, but $30,000 every month. That's all I got to say on that.
All right. I want to see a video on your YouTube channel with a whiteboard showing us exactly how that's broken down.
Bro, I already got people. I don't know if she's in the room right now. She was earlier. We've already done this with people. They're in the. She was in this room a second ago. But the next time you see Angela Silman, just tap her on the shoulder. Ask her what life is like. Because she started during the pandemic, literally 0 units, as in none. Trust me.
I love it.
This is what we do.
I love it.
All day long.
Perfect. This is fun.
TJ, I got HGTV on the line right now. They want to film you guys with that $100,000. What you got going on? You guys ready for it or what? I'll cook.
I'm always ready. Always ready.
Different layout.
Micah, did you want to say something too? I saw you unmute yourself.
Man, sorry, I got a call that came in, so I missed the first part of the Jay and TJ debacle. So I have a question for Jay. So you said 100K private money. What kind of rates are you getting on 100K private money to get arbitrages up, and how many arbitrages does that get you?
I stopped using private money because it was cheaper to sell fund after a while, and at the end of the day, you should pay no more than 7%, if that. Now, the only money that could produce a higher return is what you guys are doing in terms of this the whole what do you call that, the hotel resort space.
Oh, the timeshare strategy. Okay.
Cool. All right. Well,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. What'd you say, Micah?
I said, are you talking about the timeshare strategy?
Yes, that's exactly right. That's the math from a mathematical standpoint. That is the only thing that has a shot at beating what I've mentioned before. Yep.
Perfect. All right. Loving the conversation, guys. We got another about 30 minutes left in the room here. We've got a couple people up on stage that have not given themselves introductions. Anthony, would love to hear from you and share with us what your favorite model is, owning, co-hosting, or arbitrage. Meanwhile, guys, if you have questions, would love to open it up to all of the audience questions here for the final 30 minutes to make sure we're bringing you as much value as possible.
Hey, how you guys doing? I'm Anthony Edwards. In the scale of things, I'm like a baby ant compared to, some of these guys on stage. But with that said, I wholeheartedly 1000% agree with TJ. TJ, he was kind enough early on to say that he respected and liked both business models. There are so many different ways that you actually make money from owning a property as opposed to arbitraging a property. It's like he said, it's the short-term rental money. It is the icing on the cake. It's not the cake. With that said, I wholeheartedly get where the arbitrage model goes. I would love to see how Jay would take $100,000 and turn it into $30,000 a month in cash flow, within a year. That's amazing, and I would love to see it. With all of that said, they're both legitimate means of doing business. You have to get in where you fit in. You have to do what works for you. With that said, I don't think many people are able, have the know-how, have the ability to do it on the scale that Jay's doing it on. So it might not be an apples-to-apples comparison with most people. The knowledge that Jay has been, hard fought for over many years. It's not something, he's not an overnight sensation. So, to get up to the speed where he's at, it's going to take a lot of work. If you own your property, it's a lot more forgiving in terms of mistakes and the learning curve. Anthony Edwards, I'm done speaking.
Okay. Thanks for the 2 cents, Anthony. Appreciate you being on stage. Michael Crockett, what's going on, man?
Hey, guys. Good morning. And thanks so much for having me part of the discussion. Arbitrage versus co-hosting versus owning. Well, firstly, I'm Sacramento-based. I actually participate in all three. I can't say there's a one-size-fits-all. As I'm out pitching landlords for arbitrage, or if I'm looking for a new property scope out to purchase, I feel like it has to just fit the deal, right? So if you're talking to a landlord and they're like, I don't want to lease my property to you, it doesn't make sense to me. I actually kind of want to do it myself. Then I'm able to pitch co-hosting. So I guess it's just kind of catering your pitch to whatever fits the deal best. So I can't say there's one silver bullet. I kind of participate in all of them. So, But yeah, I guess it just has to fit the deal. If it's something that you're interested in, as far as like co-hosting, if that works for you, if it's fun for you, got time for it, great. Arbitrage is super easy to get into, a lot less money commitment up front. So it works for a lot of people to scale. I have a few arbitrage properties. And then for owning, I own a couple houses. Like I said, it's really difficult just to pick one particular thing that works for one particular person. You got to kind of just do what fits the deal.
No, that's awesome, man. Okay, I've got a really specific question for the group, especially because we have some very big businesses up here on stage as moderators, and some businesses that are going to be big here in the next probably less than a year. Exit strategy, guys. Exit strategy. I think whether you envision selling your business or leaving your business, that is not the case here. I'm talking about the necessity of, when you start a business, needing to have an exit strategy as either your true exit strategy or a just in case. I love co-hosting because I have contracts that are mutually beneficial to these owners. And if I built this up the right way, I am going to have relationships and a plug and play model to hand over to the next owner if I decide to ever sell my business one day. I believe the same to be true for arbitrage. However, especially if you're in apartment complexes, I think it's tougher to sell a business based on apartment complexes or condos where there's an HOA and that management can change very quickly. I believe that becomes a tougher thing to sell. And then, of course, when it comes to ownership, there's a lot of legalities that go from selling a business that is going to have owned assets in there as well. So I think it's easiest to sell a co-hosting business model, but I want to hear what you guys think. What is what's a good exit strategy? Is it selling, or is there another exit strategy that we haven't talked about? And B, what is the easiest one to exit and possibly sell? There's got to be someone with a thought on this. Jay, TJ, Micah, I know you guys have thought about this.
I have a thought on this. If,
yeah, go for it.
All right, perfect. So I think I'll come at this from a different perspective, because you mentioned about, what is the easiest to sell, and that's definitely what I focused on with my business, and like going into a purchase, arbitrage, or if we decide to do a management agreement, it's always set up to where, okay, what is this available and set up to sell? But on the other side of that, I actually purchased a vacation rental business that had both arbitrage and management. So I guess for me, it technically, since it was a business that had both, it kind of was, I would say it's just as easy to kind of sell from experience. But I will say this, it really depends on how things are structured, and you want things in LLCs, and it's always easiest to, instead of having a management contract or a rental agreement get transferred to another business, you want it to where they can just buy the LLCs. So then there doesn't have to be any real conversation with the owners about who's operating the business and if they actually want this deal to go through. So I'd say structuring is super important, but as long as things are structured well enough, it should be generally just as easy. Now, if you're working with unless there's some sort of contingency in your contracts with if you're working with a large corporation, where you for the arbitrage side of things, it really shouldn't be that bad. But again, it really depends on how it's structured. And from my experience in purchasing a business like that, especially if it's all operated by the same system, meaning the same employees are doing the same thing for the management properties as they are for the arbitrage, as long as you have it structured right, it shouldn't be too bad.
Cool. I like it. And so you're mainly just talking about arbitrage versus co-hosting. You weren't referring to any ownership in there?
Correct. So in terms of purchasing property, I've never purchased it's kind of you know what? I think this will be very useful for people who want to either sell their business or looking to purchase a business on the arbitrage and co-hosting side. One thing that we ended up doing when I did purchase that business, one of the arbitrage properties, because of that relationship that we gained with the owner of the property when we purchased the business, they actually decided to sell the property to us. So the value in purchasing a business is not so much just the contracts that you get, but it's the relationships that were built in that business. So I like, and this was even a flash in the pan. Actually, one of the management properties, they're looking to sell their property now too. And we're the first in line in terms of purchasing that property. So it's a really good way to purchase property and do an off-market deal if you are getting into this relationship with a business that's arbitraging or doing management. So again, another nuance to what you asked, but I'm a very big fan of purchasing and selling short-term rental businesses. I grew my own, but I'm really glad I had the experience to also purchase a business to add to my portfolio too. Brought in a lot of benefits.
Sweet. Thanks for sharing, Theron. Looking forward to talking to you too on my podcast. We got to get you on there. Looking forward to that. So Rafa, Rafa.
We're all set.
Oh, you scheduled perfect. Thanks, man. Looking forward to that. Rafa, Jesse, Jay, TJ, Micah, you guys have got some big businesses. Have you thought about exit strategy? Have you thought about what that looks like from either an ownership or arbitrage model? Or Jesse, I know you're doing some co-hosting as well. Any thoughts on any of the three being easier or simpler to sell to the next person or exit from?
Honestly, I'll go ahead. Go ahead, Rafa, because I'm walking.
I'll take this. Yeah, I mean, anything that cash flows you're going to be able to sell, especially if you have a good P&L. And Kyle, you and I have been kind of, talking about how to structure this stuff in the right way. So eventually, at some point, that we could sell. If that's, you always want to have an extra strategy. We've been talking about how do we license this, and do we need to have a realtor license on top of it, and a brokerage, and maybe that might be a good question for Jay. We might ask him that question. But yeah, anything, I feel that if you have a good P&L put together, if you're doing things the right way, if you have all the correct licensing and licensure, yeah, absolutely. I would think, 5 years down the road, I'd like to sell and maybe do something else. And the thing about tangible assets, if you own them, that's a whole other set of and that's why personally I like to own real estate, and obviously I co-host as well. But you could sell those properties for more, especially if they're cash flowing. There's a whole different type of investor that's looking at stuff like that. You could even sell a package portfolio where you're selling your properties along with the co-host model that you have, depending on how much that generates. So there's just so much possibility and potential when you put these two things together, or even if you arbitrage as well. It's endless, right? If you really look at it. Maybe Sandra might come in and say, hey, Jess, I want to buy your whole portfolio and your, maybe not buy the properties, but purchase the model or something like that. I don't know. There's tons of potential and possibilities. So I think that's what I really love about it, real estate in general. And building generational wealth. That's why I personally like to own real estate. So I could pass it down to my kids and family and whatnot. So it's a long-term game for me. It's not necessarily a short-term game, but anybody that's buying anything, you always want to have an exit strategy, right? So those are my two thoughts.
Yeah, Micah, go ahead, and then I'll give my thoughts on it after. I know you wanted to speak. Okay, so so here's my thing, right? I'll give you guys what my exit strategy is, right? I'm playing the long-term game. So my strategy, and I don't have an actual exit strategy to get out of the short-term rental game, right? I think ultimately for all of us here, everybody in this room that does arbitrage, I think the end game is to eventually buy some kind of property or real estate, right? I know even Jay does it because he's the one that got me into this mindset of doing arbitrage to eventually own. And so my end game is 15 years down the line to be chilling on some awesome beach, forest, whatever it is, right? Hanging out, 8 a.m., sipping coffee, 10 p.m., having a margarita, whatever it is. And the only way to get there is to own real estate, cash flow, and every month passive income. So my exit strategy is legit to build a good short-term rental business that cash flows enough for me to start purchasing properties that I can implement into my strategy to probably short-term rent again to be able to get to that point, right? And whether it takes 20 really good specific properties that are cash flowing a really good amount, or 100
corporate housing companies that are generating a really good amount to get there. It doesn't matter. The point is to be able to do it correctly, do it strategically, to be able to get to that point to where eventually I'm living strictly off of 100% passive income, because just being the first of the month, I collect a paycheck of whatever it is, 50 grand, because I did it all and set the framework properly from the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes total sense, man. Absolutely. Micah, did you want to share as well?
Yeah, honestly, that's why the reason why I buy and I arbitrage is because of equity. My goal is to eventually 1031 all the properties that I own into a big apartment complex. Not a complete apartment complex or a hotel. That's why I like both strategies. The arbitrage is the cash play, and the ownership is cash and equity. So that is my exit strategy at the end of the day, to eventually own a large apartment or hotel. So that's where I'm going with it.
How many hotels, Micah?
Say that again, Jay.
How many hotels?
If I can get one hotel, I'd be in there.
Aim higher,
Get more.
One hotel with at least 100 doors. I'm with it.
I love it.
Hey, Mike, when you get to that
topic of go ahead, TJ.
Oh, no, my bad, Jay. I didn't know you were speaking. You were coming in and out pretty bad. No, I'm just going to tell Mike, I agree with you, Jay. Aim higher. Once you get to the 100 door, you're going to want 500 more.
Let me get 1,000 then. Let me shoot for the stars, land on the moon.
Yeah, and Kyle, just to kind of piggyback off of that. I mean, we think about exit strategies all the time, and honestly, I feel like mine is somewhat kind of changing. It's definitely changed since I started this business. But I'm similar to just to kind of for me, it's a long-term play. It's a long-term play for sure. And I'm definitely using this business and just my overall experience in real estate to definitely own multiple doors. I definitely do. I definitely have a goal and a passion to really dive into this multifamily hotel space to where we have we own a lot of doors. So that's for me right now. That's immediate. I haven't. Of course, I thought about selling, but I haven't gave it too much thought to where, in a sense of it being something that's going to happen soon. But for me, even when that time comes, I honestly plan on selling the actual infrastructure, because at the end of the day, this whole thing we're talking about within this sharing economy and short-term rentals, the values and the infrastructures and the business model. So that's why I think it's 100% okay to you will be able to sell a rental arbitrage just as easily as you're able to sell a co-hosting play. Again, it just has to be the right plays, the right units, and the P&L needs to be on point. But I think arbitrage can sell just like co-hosting can. And for me, if I sell my business, I will keep the real estate but sell the business. That way they can keep paying me rent, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Awesome, guys. Hey, really good stuff here. I've got a question on. As I mentioned, I'm streaming this on my YouTube channel. Ernest Rodriguez has a question. He says, my question is for someone starting up in arbitrage. What are some key factors that you look for on getting your first rental unit? So what are some key factors, guys? I know that's probably a pretty broad question here. My first thing, Ernest, would be just location, safety, and demand. Safety is going to be you walking it or having someone walk the neighborhood. Demand is going to be something that you can find through both either like a Mash Visor, AirDNA, that kind of software. But what about you guys on the panel here? What are some first key factors that Ernest should look for in his first rental unit?
Yeah, I can give a little bit on that. So number one, make sure that it works with the model you're trying to go with, right? Speaking of the co-hosting or the arbitrage model, but if you're speaking about arbitrage model, when you go in and you look at a location, make sure that that location is going to work for what you're doing, right? And it goes down to, again, the stuff that we implement when we're looking for locations. Is it near the customer that we're trying to attract? Does it Does it have the things that we need? Like, I know some buildings don't let you even change door locks. Like, that's one of the requirements for us, right? Also to install the security systems, right? To have a doorbell camera. Some places don't allow you to do that as well. You can literally go to any location, pretty much STR, especially if depending on the location that you're at. But will it work, and will it net the amount that you're looking for, and will it attract the right customer that you're going for? Look for the location for that customer you're trying to attract, because if you're going to a 3-bedroom house and you're trying to bring in, I don't know, couples traveling in that area, odds are it's not going to do well, right? If you're trying to bring in families, like since I'm near Disneyland, like I go for large places, a 1-bedroom is probably not going to be the best case scenario for me, because I'm bringing in family groups of like 8, not even families, just large groups of like 8+ people. And so those are some of the key factors in terms of what you're looking for. Make sure that location you're going for works for what you're trying to do more than anything else. Don't look at it from a money perspective of what it'll make you. Look at it from a perspective of, will it work for the model you're trying to set up and implement? That's it. I'm done speaking.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, basically just know who you're serving, know your avatar. If you know your avatar, you've already identified what kind of property that they're going to like the best. So that's good stuff, Rafa. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Hey, Kyle, this is Jay. Really briefly, efficiency is always my thing. So it's a begin with the end in mind situation. For example, if you are going to sell, what TJ said was spot on. It's always going to come down to SOPs and the agreements the company has. And just always remember, though, that the business is separate from the real estate. No different than what I do with a cell phone tower and a commercial property, or what can be done with, say, a gas station and the real estate under it. Those two things are valued separately, treated separately, and completely differently. If you're trying to maximize later, that could be just made it easy. And remember who it is that you're going to ultimately sell to, right? If you're going to sell, then you need to build it big enough that they're actually going to be buying it.
Jay, we're losing you.
Jay, we're losing you.
Oh, man.
I think what we heard there, Jay, just to catch you up, is keeping the real estate separate from the business, and then building it up big enough to, if you've got the end buyer in mind, that's going to be attractive enough for them to buy.
Correct. And because if it's not big enough, they're not going to want to do work. Buyers not looking to do more work or purchase an asset that's going to produce for them in some way, shape, or form, preferably immediately. And you can definitely get an 11x, 12, maybe even 14 to 20x multiple for whatever it is that you've built, especially in this space. But it's got to be big enough. And then once you've decided that, like what you actually want it to do, the purpose. What is the purpose of that business? It can be very much like what Rafa said. The purpose is to produce cash flow just long enough so that I can go buy stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that as well. But being very clear about that from the beginning will save you money, save you time, and lots of frustration. This is Jam.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, guys, we got about 12 minutes left here. We have a lot of people in the audience. I'm willing to bet some of you in the audience here have some questions. We've talked about a lot of really good topics. Press that little hand raise button down there at the bottom, and we would love to hear. Probably got time for 2 questions here. Looks like Richard just jumped on. Richard, I think you are on stage now. Yeah, you are. Do you have a question for us?
Yes, thanks for bringing me up. And thank you all for sharing so much knowledge and experience that you guys have. My question is, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. My question is, in terms of the avatar, who do you serve? How do you come up with that person? Like, for instance, I live in New York City. I just got approved. I just got my mortgage commitment for my townhouse, which I'm buying, and I plan on doing short-term rental out of part of it. And I'm trying to figure out, before I do the renovation, how do I determine who would be the best avatar for
Hey, Richard, I think you were cutting out there, but essentially it sounds like your question is how to figure out who your avatar is. Do I have that right?
Yeah, how do you determine who would be the best avatar for your location?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? I can chime in on that for.
Yep, go for it, Rafa.
Cool. Yeah. So Richard, right? The biggest issue here is know what you're going after, and like for example, what do you look for when you travel, right? You can use yourself as that avatar of the person you're bringing in. Like that's probably the quickest way to get started. Is what do you look for when you travel? Like, do you look for specific things? That will give you a great way to or an idea of where to start, right? The second thing is look in your location, like wherever your property's at. Like if you own the building, if there's a hospital like a mile away, you're probably going to go after hospital people, right? If there's a Disneyland up the street, obviously you're going to go after Disneyland people. But the biggest one is look at yourself and see what you look for when you're traveling, and go after all the others you in the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's awesome. And I want to add to this. Hey, Jesse, go for it, man.
Yeah, sorry. Rich, one of the beauties about short-term rentals is you get to be the creative, right? You can make it whatever the heck you want. Like you get to decide that. And I think that's where you have these operators that are doing things that are differently, and they're not doing what everybody else is doing in the neighborhood. They're changing. They're making their own. They're making their own space and creating their own. That's kind of what I like to do. Is I want to create an experience for somebody coming in. So yeah, you can host families and things like that, but you have the ability and the chance to create your own canvas, and it's a blank. It's a blank slate. So that's what I love about short-term rentals, and a lot of people do different things, and that's where you get to really create what it is you're doing. Your city obviously is New York. I mean, there's everything there, right? It's the Mecca, but you can kind of create what you want. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and honestly, like Jesse, I think you're going to be able to really relate to this. But Richard, just start over trying to figure out all the things that they're going to want before you start. There's no better way to learn who your avatar is than to actually start getting people in your house. And once you have them in your house, you now have the opportunity to survey them. Hey, what are you in town for? Hey, what is something that I can do to add more value to your stay? And you can start collecting data from those people that are coming into your place. For example, I did not think at any level in this world that anyone would want to come to Fresno, California to stay in an Airbnb. And Jesse probably is thinking the same thing about Modesto. But we just tried and we got people to start booking. And what I noticed very quickly about Fresno, California is people were coming there because they have to, not because they want to. That in itself means that I have a lot of people coming into town for business, for, unfortunate events like funerals. There's stuff like that going on. There's a lot of people that are coming in because they're working at the hospital. There's people that are coming into town for family reunions to see family. Now they've got kids of, a family of 4, and they don't want to divide up into 2 hotels. So they get an Airbnb and they can't stay at grandma and grandpa's house. So for that reason, I was able to collect a lot of that data and say, okay, each one of our places needs to have a work desk so that these business travelers will be attracted here. Each one of our places needs to have kids games and adult games so that they can have family time together at the end of the day. There's little things that I was able to gather just by getting people in the house. And then, of course, when we expanded to Phoenix, Arizona, that was a completely separate avatar. It was people that now were looking for getting out of town during March to go to spring training. And so we tried to find places that are close to spring training facilities. And it was just a completely different set of people. But even then, I have this idea of who that avatar is, but every person that's coming in Phoenix now, we're still asking them, hey, what is something that we can add to the house to give a better stay for everyone? And to me, there was no better way to do that than actually getting people in the house.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. We've got time for one more question, and then we're going to start giving outros here for all of our moderators. It looks like Jenna is on stage. Jenna, do you have a question for us?
Thank you so much for allowing me to get on here and ask this question. So I am actually a student of Jay's. I use some of his online courses to get started, and I'm getting ready to launch my first unit. And basically, I've talked to a lot of owners already,
And a couple of things that I'm coming up against is keeping the lease as close as possible to what its market value is and what they're listing it as. A lot of people, once they realize what I'm doing and I explain who I want to serve, and the business model a little bit, they want to raise the rent amount pretty high, and it's already high enough in Denver. I'm in Denver. And the other issue is like, what keywords can I use to share with these owners as the value add beyond like some of the scripts and things I'm using of why they could keep the rent amount the same and they're still benefiting from having me as a tenant. And the other issue is the city ordinances are changing really fast. I mean, Denver's completely outlawed unless it's a 30-day minimum, but I switched to Inglewood, which was nearby, and now they're changing their ordinances to where the owner of the home has to assume liability, and we can't do like any apartment buildings. So I'm just learning to navigate that, and I'm kind of figuring out A, how to add value in my language so that they keep the lease at market value, and B, some of the best ways to navigate the city ordinances without, I would rather not do a 30-day minimum, you know. So that's where I'm at.
Hey, Dina. Okay, so first of all, good job taking action. Yes, Denver is one of those markets that I have enjoyed, and enjoyed, that one is in quotation marks. So when it comes to the value add, there's a couple of PDF downloads that you should have access to that actually outline that for the owner. And if I remember correctly, we did them in such a way that you can put your own company corporate name there instead. The benefits are the same, whether it's me or doing it or whether it's you, if that makes sense. So you have a number of PDF resources there for that, very specifically. Additionally, I wouldn't be afraid of a 30-day market at all, because, and I can give you many examples where there are many individuals who are, because one of the biggest advantages of a 30-day is that you can expand faster because you have less turns and less intermediate work to do. You can actually grow a portfolio much, much faster than you can with than a less than 30-day situation. Additionally, you can afford, quote unquote, the time to drive relationships deeper, meaning because your customers are staying longer, you can better develop a relationship with the corporation or with whatever source of customer that you generated. So those are things to strongly consider, because the business model has lots of economic advantages as well, in addition to being politically sustainable. Now, Darren is definitely someone you're going to want to catch up with, okay? Because he's good at the politicking. I'll put it that way. So for sure, that's definitely something you want to catch up with. But again, I would not stop a 30-day model because of that. With that being said, the other question when it comes to the language around, hey, with the landlords, I get that question all the time too. Every landlord they want a piece of the pie. And my language is often as direct and as simple as this. Yeah, you know what? I completely understand where you're coming from. And I have no problem cutting you in. Can you tell me what else you're bringing to the table? Because right now, that's the price with the place empty. If you want more money, I'm assuming you're going to be bringing something else to the table. Are you bringing furniture? Are you buying it? Are you bringing, what else are you installing that would be worth paying for? I have no problem with what you're talking about. That's really what it comes down to. It's having a very straight and direct conversation, and that you're paying market rate for what you are giving, what they're receiving and giving in terms of value. If they want to bring more to the table, let them. I have not had one person, not one landlord yet, even come close to saying, oh, well, then let me pay for the furniture, because they're not going to do it. But they understand the conversations. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jay. Are the PDF downloads from the value add, is that through your cash flow diary, or is that through like the Nada's platform? Okay, perfect.
No. Yeah, they'll definitely be in the cash flow diary platform. It should be in the app that you downloaded. It should be in there.
Perfect. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate all of that so much.
Jenna,
You're welcome.
real quick, I just want to piggyback with what Jay was saying. Jay, and I know he wasn't going to say this, but he's letting on more, or he's not letting on enough of how him and many others are committed to advocacy and community protection for short-term rentals and regulations. He actually was a very big supporter for the last fundraiser we had for advocacy organizations that protect short-term rentals from ordinances like things that you're talking about. And I just want to say, Jenna, feel free to reach out, and I'll give you a totally free consultation on just all the regulation stuff, just as icing on the cake to what Jay has offered you already. We'll make sure you're protected there.
Thank you so much, Darren. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenna, for the question. And this is getting to the top of the hour, which means that we...
Complete. Yeah, thank you everyone so much for this time today. This has been extremely informative.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I thought I was talking there, but I guess I was on mute. Thank you, Jenna, for the question. I appreciate you jumping on, and I appreciate all of the moderators here, all the people who have asked questions. And now I just want to give all the moderators a chance as we're wrapping up here to give a quick little 10-second outro, something quick about yourself, and then where people can find you and follow all of the content that you're putting out. So we'll start from the back here. Michael Crockett.
Hey, Kyle, thanks for making me part of the discussion today. Sorry, there's background noise. I'm driving. Anyone can reach out to me. I'm an ambassador and a superhost now for over 3 years. You can reach me on social media at ArtHouseABB. Happy to answer questions, provide some inside influence based on my experience, and thanks so much for the value-add discussion today. It's really been awesome, and glad you guys are sharing this content consistently.
Thank you, Michael. Awesome to have you on board here. TJ Tajani.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, I'm mad I missed that last question. I had a phone call that came in. But yeah, I'm TJ Tajani, real estate investor, short-term investor here in Houston, Texas. Definitely just tap in with me here on Clubhouse. I do have a club here, short-term rental roadmap. Tapping with the club, and also on Instagram. That's where I post a lot of good content on Instagram as well. I'm actually also having a free class, a 100% free master class on Thursday. You can definitely get that with the link in my bio on my Instagram page as well. We're talking about short-term rentals and, Jay, how to own with private money with the bear strategy. We're going to be talking about all that stuff, all the good stuff, man. So definitely tap in, link in my bio. And Kyle, man, listen, appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much for everything you do with for the short-term rental community.
Absolutely, man. Great having you on the panel as always. And just like I mentioned when you jumped on here, guys, if you want to hear all about TJ's story, he's got a great one. We just had him on my podcast today. So if you go to fearlesskyle.com, you can find both the YouTube version of that and also the podcast version. TJ brought the hammer, man. He was doing some good stuff talking about wholesaling before wholesaling was even a thing. It was fun talking, TJ. All right, Jay Massey.
Howdy, Jay. And for those of you who are wanting to get started in the short-term rental space, the easiest, fastest way, you heard what I believe Jenna was talking about earlier, just text the word blueprint, just the word, nothing else, to the number in my bio, and we will give you the exact same information that we've given to her so that you can get your first one up and off the ground. Doesn't cost anything but a text message and your dedication to actually using the material. And then after you're done using the material, you will be at the beginning point of what I consider to be your cash flow journey. And then later, what you'll be able to do is to let TJ know that you can even do it with 182 unit building, retail, commercial spaces, cell phone towers, and you will already have proven it with the results and HUDs that say Arbitrage wins. Thanks.
Cash flow, baby. I'm all for it.
You guys are awesome. Thank you, Jay. Theron.
All right. Once again, this was a fantastic broadcast, and I'm just going to quickly recap myself. And again, I'm the Airbnb regulations guy. I focus on advocacy and protecting people's short-term rentals from unfair regulation. I almost lost my entire business due to unfair regulation. And through the steps that I employed and the strategy I employed, we got our proposed ban pulled completely in Detroit, and we're now at the table with City Council in charge of making ordinances for the short-term rental industry with them. And this is something that I want everybody to have the ability to have in their city. It just takes one person to get a organization started and represent their community, and a lot can happen, and you can do a lot for your business as well. I just want to follow up by saying, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I think this is going to go in a good way. But I do have an update with regards to some things in Philadelphia. They are proposing some bans, and it's gotten pretty serious. And that's one thing that I'm really working on right now. So if anybody's in Philadelphia, knows anybody in Philadelphia, definitely go to their Facebook page and just reach out and just stay tuned for some things going on there. We're going to try and support them as much as possible and really make sure that they still have the ability to host. So that's just the thing I want everybody to know and be aware of. And, let's be a great community and support our cities when they're in need. And Philadelphia is definitely in need right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Theron. And looking forward to having you on my show, man. And we can talk more about how people can start taking control of their communities and being that person to stand up and make sure that bans turn into mutual ordinances, which I love hearing that. So thank you for all the value. Norman.
Hey guys, my name is Norman. I'm based out of Houston, and you can find me on Instagram. Just click on my profile on Clubhouse, and at the bottom, just connect with me on it.
Oh, Norman, I think we lost you. Looks like your mic's muted again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Yeah. I was saying, hey guys, you can find me in my bio on Instagram. You can connect with me there, or you can just tap with me on Clubhouse whenever I'm in the room. And that's pretty much it. You can ask me anything. You can text me on Instagram. I respond pretty quick.
Perfect. Thank you, Norman. Rachel.
Hey guys, I'm Rachel. I'm in the luxury short-term rental space. I manage a Facebook group where we discuss luxury short-term rentals and the challenges, the ups and downs with other hosts. I'm investing in Georgia, Florida, and currently in the Poconos as well for some property management. And I do echo the issues that Theron has mentioned relative to the regulations. So that's been pretty impactful, and we're looking at getting those remediated. You can find me on Instagram, and my Instagram is linked to my bio. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. And Kenya.
Thanks, Kyle. Everybody can reach out and find me on Instagram. Definitely send me a DM or schedule a free consultation there. I just want people to remember, you just got to get started. Don't stress too much over finding the best location, because I feel like any location will work. Rural locations, city locations, walkable locations. I feel like, there's something to it all. You just have to assess where the property is located, what's beneficial to you. And to the young lady who mentioned about the landlord trying to get more money, I've had that same situation too with the most recent landlord that I've worked with. She's bought like 5 other properties since I acquired her first one and tried to get me to re-up for my money. And I agree with Jay. You definitely have to make sure she's got some skin in the game, or the landlord, has some skin in the game. If they definitely want more money for you. So definitely just reach out if you have any questions. Thanks again.
Perfect. Thank you, Kenya. Majid. Looks like Majid is not next to his phone right now. That's okay. Jesse.
Kyle, thanks for having me in this room, man. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for listening. My name is Jesse Vasquez. I am the founder of Bear Venture Hosting Company. We are a short-term rental luxury unique space agency, and I also am an investor. So you can find me on Instagram. It's linked to my profile on here. If you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out. And my biggest suggestion, I think, was with Kenya. You guys just get started. Pick somebody that you resonate with. I know Kyle's got a class. Jump in there. He does. I think he even offers free. Kyle, you might want to talk about that. I guess I'm kind of plugging for you. But anyway, just get started. I mean, there's tons of information all over the place, and make sure you run your numbers, but connect with somebody that resonates with you guys, and then just get going. I mean, that's the only way to do it. Big action, big reward.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. Rafa.
Hey, Kyle. Thanks for having me up, man. It's always a pleasure to be in this room. So my name's Rafa. I'm a short-term rental operator in Southern California. Best way to reach me is on Clubhouse, either in this room and Kenya's room. They're the two that I really don't miss. Or the B&B and breakfast room at 8 a.m. in the mornings too. But if you send me a message on Instagram, I honestly probably won't reply because I have a ton. But I'm always open to chat on Clubhouse. Like, I'm on it all day long, so just start a private room if you want. Other than that, yeah, thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just got a text from Ellie Paget, who is always involved in these rooms too. And she said there is another club going on right now. It's called the Airbnb Hospitality Club. The title is Let's Ask the Experts Fully Furnished. That's the name of it. So if you want to go check out another group and you don't feel like you've gotten enough great information yet, and go for it over there. But yeah, thanks guys so much for joining us on the STR lunch break. We talked a ton about arbitrage, co-hosting, and owning. I want to encourage everyone right now that wants to keep on learning and wants to just get some immense value. Just like what Jesse said, you can follow whoever you want here, but we have a free event on Thursday, and you can DM me on Instagram for this. My name on Instagram is Fearless Kyle. You can find the event. It's going to be a 1-hour webinar called How to Start and Build an Airbnb Business with Just 3 Hours of Work per Week. So we're talking about automating an Airbnb business and how to even start that process and not have to feel like you're putting so much time aside from your family, your job, your social life, all the priorities that are in your life, be able to build this business with just 3 hours per week. So DM me on Instagram. Fearless Kyle is the name on Instagram. Would love to be able to send you the invite to register for that. And join us again next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for the STR lunch break. Thank you all for being here, and wish Jim a quick recovery. He's usually co-hosting with me on this. He's feeling a little bit under the weather today. So if you know Jim, send him some thoughts and prayers. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys.